Okay, so this hair is so annoying. Yo, you ever get that feeling like you haven't combed your hair in like 3 days and now it's starting to catch up on you and now it just feels like so. Oh my god, I need a haircut, but I don't know what am I supposed to cut my hair into? I mean, usually I just shave it all off, or I become bald. I look like I look like I'm in the military, and I don't want to be that. That's too little work. But I don't want to comb this hair every day because it's so hard to comb. You know how much it hurts to comb your hair? It's like you're like feel like the comb's been breaking your hand. Yeah, that's me. With this hair, at least. When I get a cut, I'll actually look like not a hobo who. Yeah, I won't look like a hobo anymore. Hopefully, after I get my hair cut. Anyway, so yeah. Today I was going to talk about things that you take for granted because I feel like this phrase is used not in the right way. Because when someone says take something for granted, right? What they mean is that you use it. I should actually look this up. All right, I'm gonna look this up. I'll be right back. Take for granted, right? It says fail to properly appreciate someone or something, especially as a result of over familiarity. Over familiarity. Okay. Over familiarity. People always complain that, oh, you take me for granted or you take that for granted. But in reality, do you really take it for granted? I mean, I think when someone says you take something for granted, right? What they mean is that there's other people in the world who don't have what you have. But you're arrogant to that. You're ignorant to that and you don't know about it. Right? So what are some things that we actually take for granted? I mean, you could say that, I don't know, I take food for granted, but I don't. I don't take food for granted. I know people are starving in other places of the world, but I don't take it for granted because I know and I appreciate that I have food every day, sort of thing. And not really appreciate, but not appreciating something and take for granted are two different things. That's what I'm trying to say, really. Okay, so what are things we actually take for granted? Oh yeah, and take for granted, it also has to, I think, take for granted, it has to be other people in the world without it. Like, you can't say you take your heart for granted, right? Because everyone in the world has a heart. If you don't have a heart, you're dead. That's how life works. So what is something that we actually take for granted? Well, one thing we take for granted are toilets. Yes, well, some places in the world don't have toilets. I know it's a shock. You can sit back and go like, oh my god, but it's true. I've been to China. I went to China in August, right? And they didn't have toilets. Or some places had toilets, but the places that didn't have toilets, why know what they had? They had a hole in the ground. You actually have to air squat above the hole in the ground. I'm not gonna call it a toilet because it's not a toilet. If you were in the poor side of China, right? All it was just a concrete hole in the ground. It was just a concrete with a hole cutting out of it, and inside you could see all the nasty stuff. I guess they had someone come out and clean it. All right. But now you do. But if you're in the richer part of China, they have a nice hole in the ground that actually flushes. So why don't you just spend the extra, I don't know, $10 and put it so you can sit down on the toilet? But that's not the point. Okay, the point is you take for granted toilets. I mean, you use it every day, and you don't know that other people in the world don't have toilets. That's something we take for granted. I'd say literacy you take for granted, right? I mean, you don't. Yeah, you take literacy for granted too. So you take literacy for granted. Being able to read is not something that everyone has. I'm sure you know this, but at least 20 or 30% of people in the world don't know how to read. And that's pretty shocking, I mean, you grew up learning to speak. Speaking of which, how do you learn to speak a language? Like, you grew up saying ba ba mama, and all of a sudden now I'm speaking sophisticated words like this. Like, how does that happen? I don't even know. It's okay. Back on topic. So yeah, being able to read and write is something that we take for granted. I'll say that's perfectly fine. But saying that you take food for granted after you tell me that after I tell you that you take toilets and reading for granted, you don't take them for granted anymore. Now you learn to appreciate it. You think, oh, other places in the world don't have them. That's what I'm trying to say. So taking for granted something is something that you don't know about. You don't know what you take for granted until you're done taking for granted of it. And then you don't take for granted of it. That doesn't make sense. Whatever, okay. That's what I'm trying to say. I always say whatever. I'm going to try to stop saying whatever from now on. It's not going to work. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to work. But yeah, so basically, when you take something for granted, it's not something that you take for granted. For example, I used to take for granted of toilets until I realized that other places don't have toilets. And guess what? I don't take for granted of toilets anymore either, but now okay. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for watching. And, yeah, have a good whatever you're in. Morning. If it's not morning, then night. Not night, then afternoon.